Oh, hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of very important things, and AP US history related. Um, so, so yeah, we're going to be talking about all those things. In Apush recently, we've been talking a lot about the market revolution, which is actually the first topic we're talking about here. So, the market revolution. So, uh, we did the recently also talked about like obviously the Andrew Jackson trial, which was pretty fun. It was very enjoyable. I think we actually learned a lot about Andrew Jackson. I'm sure I could go on tangent talking about a lot what we learned, and it was very enjoyable. Okay, let's just start talking about the market revolution. So basically, settlers started moving west, as you guys know, Indian Removal Act. The Indians got kind of kicked out. Um, they invented around this time the steel plow and the reaper, the mechanical reaper, and that increased farming efficiency. And farmers obviously became pretty. They switched from subsistence farmers uh, to sorry. They started producing cash crops instead of subsistence farmers, and they sort of fueled the growth of cities and industries. Early roads like the turnpikes and the national road began in 1811, improved inland travel. Robert, the steamboat was very important from improving river transport, and this lowers shipping costs, which means it increases potential profits of businesses, and also the connections between farmers and eastern markets. In 1825, Clinton obviously did the Big Ditch. It's not Clinton. There was the Big Ditch, the Erie Canal. And it was actually, sorry, it was completed under Governor Clinton, DeWitt Clinton, and it connected Lake Erie to the uh, Hudson River. I actually would want. I would look for a map. Erie Canal to Hudson River. I'll pull up a map. All right. Oh yeah. That's the image. As you guys can see, it goes from Lake Ontario to thing. This is on our reading quiz. Did I put though? Yeah, I actually might have made a mistake on that. I suppose there must have been a curve because I think I actually put connect Southern Farmers thing instead of connects Ohio River Valley to Eastern. Where is the Ohio? Huh. I guess probably. Okay. So, yeah, it's obviously good connectivity and helped out New York. Um, uh, they invented the telegraph, so invented by Samuel Morse, who invented Morse code, and this revolutionized sort of communication. Uh, Clipper ships, for example, carried goods and passengers um, quickly over oceans, and but they were replaced by steamships. And fortunately, steamships are a lot faster and more efficient. And then the Pony Express, it sped up mail delivery across the West before being replaced by the telegraph. Market revolution was sort of the transformation from a local subsistence economy to a national commercial sort of industrial economy. and it sort of it it really it it quickened the transition from like living in rural areas to urban cities as the center of commerce as we have now. Like 99% of our economies are just functioned by just a couple of cities in America. And people started working for wages instead of just do it working a couple of jobs, one or the other. And women also were allowed to work in factories now. The Lowell system comes to mind, and um, um, and it widened the gap between the rich and the poor. But overall, living standards were did improve, and it marked the rise of capitalism, and a couple of social reform movements. Second Great Awakening, people decided to become Protestant. Yeah, pretty cool. A lot of diversity in denominations, Mormons, Baptists, Methodists, Presbyterians, religious foundation. Uh, um, Horace Mann, she was also like a feminist, but she believed in free schools, um, and better schools and expanded curriculum. And also Mormons expanded westward under Brigham Young. Let's actually BYU is Brigham Young University. Um, and they settled in Utah. They clashed with the U.S. government, and they also like clashed with the local native tribes, who they just sort of fought out. Um, New colleges were established in the Midwest and South. Women's education advanced, with some women-only colleges. Um, a lot of optimism was going around. They wanted to improve society, such as temperance, abolition, women's rights, prisons, asylums. Temperance movement. They wanted to slow down alcohol, but it didn't really work very well. And later, national prohibition would happen, which was a very bad mistake. Um, Women sort of tried to fight for their rights in the Seneca Falls Convention. It wasn't only their rights, but also stuff like child labor. They were against that, not pro child labor. Um, and a couple of experimental societies were living in the wilderness. Brook Farm. Actually, want to Google these. So what's a Brook Farm? I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit tired. I'm just community was never financially stable. Apparently, a lot of these were founded, like the Fruitlands. Apparently, he later talked about his experience in a book called The Blithedale Romance. It could be some interesting reading. Uh, so yeah, scientists, they worked hard, did their thing. Oneida community was sort of one of these experimental communes. They practiced communal ownership and complex marriage, polygamy things. Originally, the Mormons did too, actually. Because the Mormons, when they were East and Joseph Smith, Brigham Young was against polygamy, but a lot of the other followers of the original followers of Joseph Smith and were actually pro polygamy, viewed in a positive light. I mean, Joseph Smith himself was had multiple wives, as if the old chronicles are to be believed. Um, some writers, stuff people like Ralph Waldo Emerson, who's like really famous, or Walt Whitman, who's really famous for the Song of Myself, the really famous poetry. Um, Henry David Thoreau, what a guy! I mean, if you've ever read one of his books, it's not particularly too easy as far as um, reading goes, but perhaps I've grown to be very interested in that type of thing. I'm thinking about if I just lived in a cabin and I wrote every single day. He wrote Walden. It's perhaps the most famous writing of his. But it really comes to think, especially for me, like if I could go live on a cabin in the wilderness somewhere, um, self-sufficiently, I suppose, um, and I could just write every day, read every day, have some fun, like do some other activities every day, and just improve myself. And it sounds pretty enticing, to be honest. Especially it would have been more enticing because stuff like the internet wasn't around then. So that low key would have been. I keep saying low key. It is, I suppose, a colloquial word. But what I mean to say is, I mean, the sentiment I mean to convey is, of course, that this idea seems very enticing. Very, very enticing. Very, very enticing. Enticing. Very enticing. 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 Nationalist. Nationalist literature um, emerged after the War of the 1812, especially stuff pro Jackson. Jackson did win a victory. Even after the war was over, he won a victory. Just real cool. Uh, celebrated democracy, frontier life. But I have to say, the life of someone like Thoreau is very enticing. Enticing. How do I? Let me show Thoreau. This is Henry David Thoreau. Um, have you ever read his famous Civil Disobedience? We read it in AP. We read it in AP Lang actually. I have to say it presents a rather compelling case, but one, uh, it's like, is civil disobedience the best way of showing distress? Well, what other thing do we have? I mean, some would say even stuff like the civil rights movement was just an example of civil disobedience, something to sit in, right? It's disobedience, yes, but it is civil. It isn't really uncivil. It's not as if they're going out and violently attacking people. They're always an abolitionist, so John Brown. John Brown is a sort of a legend. I mean, some people really like him. It was Quentin Tarantino who said he thought he looked like John Brown a little bit, which I can see that. And I can't lie, he does kind of look like John Brown. And he said he would want to play John Brown. John, John Brown was a crazy abolitionist. He wasn't really civil at disobedience. He was disobedience purely. Thoreau is referred to as an anarchist. But Thoreau had a distinctive appearance. Thorough, 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 Thoreau, Thoreau, thorough, thorough. Thoreau is the modern day. Thorough, thorough, thorough. That's sort of the stress apparently. How you're supposed to pronounce his name. Thorough, thorough, thorough. Not Thoreau, thorough. 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 Thoreau has something to it, just the name Thoreau. Anyways, of Protestant descent, two younger siblings. Oh. Mm. Why don't we do any of this stuff? Nature walks, visit some local shops and businesses. Actually, it would be very interesting to actually read those perhaps. Perhaps. Oh shoot, it's been so long. Just yapping. Oh yeah, sorry. So what is the greatest thing I? It's the most surprising thing I learned. Was that Thoreau was educated at Harvard College. It's easy to imagine Thoreau as someone that was uneducated, sort of lived in a cabin in the wilderness and wrote to become knowledgeable. Rather, he was rather well educated. He was of a respectable upper class family. And how does this relate to my modern life? Yeah, but it's interesting. Civil disobedience and law. I went to the woods because I wish to live deliberately to fundamentally essential parts of the world. Yeah, sorry. Yep, yep, yep.